All right. Welcome to the Employability Skills Workshop on Communication. I'm Evelyn Seiler, and I'm the Applicant Outreach Manager for the ICAT Apprenticeship Program. With me here today is Bernadette Duncan from the Matt Squared Program and Miriam Klein from the ICAT Program. We are talking today about employability skills. These are those skills that identify you as a good hire for a company. And there are 4 topics that we will be covering: communication, critical thinking, professionalism, and teamwork. Today, we're going to be talking about communication. So this workshop is designed to provide information about communication in the workplace and those communication skills you need to be successful. Communication as an employability skill is how you share information with others. This workshop will cover speaking, what, when, and how, listening, presentation skills, phone skills, email, and emotional intelligence. Speaking. So, you speak every day, but how much do you think about how you speak with others? In a work environment, very often you are expected to respond to your employer, to your supervisor, about the task that you're working on. So you want to think about what to communicate. The main point of communicating and speaking is to keep others informed and share information with them about the project you're working on. You want to focus on the facts. You don't want the maybe ifs or the if I coulda. This is about what's happening right now and where you are in the process, what's working, what isn't, very specific to the facts. You want to share your ideas in complete thoughts. Set the context, set the situation, identify the outcome. Particularly if you're having an issue or your supervisor is checking in with you on a big project. So this is the project, the scope of the project. This is where I'm at right now and where I'm at in the whole process of the project. And this is the outcome I'm having currently and what I expect to happen and when I would intend to finish. Confirm you heard instructions or corrections and advice. So very often your supervisor is going to give you instructions. They're going to give you corrections. They're going to give you some advice. You need to be able to communicate back to them that you've heard this information, whether it's I understand, thank you very much for the input. That's a really good idea. Give them feedback so they know that you are actually hearing them and that you understand. So communicating that is essential. So when do you communicate? You want to communicate in a timely fashion. If you're having a problem, your supervisor probably needs to know about that right away. You don't want to wait 2-3 days when they can't help you with it or they can't help you figure it out and problem solve it. You want to communicate when asked. So if they're addressing you, you want to be participatory and give them that feedback in the moment. How do you communicate? It's essential that you speak clearly, that you make eye contact when possible, and repeat information you receive to confirm your understanding. Mumbling is never acceptable. I know quite a few young people, I have 3 myself, and if you're not speaking clearly, those words can be misunderstood. So you need to take the time to speak clearly. Now, making eye contact when possible. If you're in the middle of something with a big machine that you can't take your eyes off of, yeah, don't look them in the eye. But looking someone in the eye makes that connection so they know that you are really paying attention. And it's important to repeat the information that you received to confirm your understanding, because then they know that, yes, you heard every word that they said. The next part of communication is listening. Active listening is setting all other things aside to really hear what someone is saying. This includes assumptions and other thoughts you may be having, or planning what you're going to say, how you're going to respond. The most important part is often the last thing that the other person has said. So part of listening is just listening, to shut off all the other parts and listen. So you're hearing what they're saying. In doing so, you're going to gather information. They're telling you important information about the job that you're doing, and you need to be very attentive to that. Take notes. This is important. If this is a project where you're going to be doing something again some other time, and this is the first time that you're doing it, maybe the second time, take some notes, because each time you go through something, you learn something new. And to have those notes when the supervisor isn't around, then you have those to go back to. Don't interrupt the person who's talking. Let them finish everything. Often the questions that come up while someone else is speaking, they will eventually answer by the time they finish what they were going to say, without being interrupted, without being prompted to jump further ahead than they want to be. So let them explain it the way they feel they need to, and then ask any questions that are still outstanding. Do not assume. Any assumptions you make about what they're saying means that you're going to make a wrong action in response. So use your speaking skills to get confirmation about what you heard. If you need to rephrase it and put it in a context, that's helpful, because then the person knows, okay, you're thinking about what I said and you want clarification on how it works in this situation. Acknowledge what the person has said. So when someone says, I need you to go over to the tool room and pick up a whatever it is they want you to pick up, say, yes, I will get to the tool room in just a moment, or on my way. Let them know that you heard them and that you are responding to what they've said. Once you've done all this listening, respond, provide facts, insights, and opinions. Presentation skills. In any work environment, you're going to be doing presentations. Now, some of them won't be formal presentations. It's just going to be with you and your supervisor, but still, it is presenting. It is speaking and talking about what you're doing. Presenting ideas to others is necessary in all types of work. So you need to get comfortable speaking in front of others. With the ICAT and Math Squared programs, often in the associate's degree is a speech class at the community college. And this will help you get used to talking in front of others and tamp down those nerves. I don't care how often someone does public speaking, it's still something that really does cause some consternation and anxiety. So it's okay to have that. Figure out how you personally are going to deal with it. Get comfortable with what you're going to be talking about. So often it's a topic where you're the professional. You're the one who is going to be presenting this topic that you know something about. So get really familiar with that material. Make sure you have clarity in your thoughts and speak clearly. Your speaking skills come in very handy with your presentation skills. Anticipate questions as you're going through your presentation. Sure, there are things that you know and you take for granted because you're familiar with that topic. But what about someone who's not as familiar? Or as you run through that presentation a couple times, what have you left out that might be essential to include? Be open to others' thoughts and ideas. So as you get feedback from others, you need to be able to process that and say, I hadn't thought of that, or address it in another way as, we had tried that at this time and this was the outcome, but let's take a look at that again and maybe it could work. Be very open to the possibility that there are other ways to do something and that the person might have some ideas that are a little different from yours. Welcome their questions and think before responding. So be open to the questions. Provide that opportunity. Any questions? Was there anything I said that was unclear? And then think about the person's question before you respond. Really let yourself think about it so you don't jump into and react to a question, and so that you are calm and present in giving that response. In any work environment, you are going to need phone skills. Some jobs use phones a lot and some jobs not as much. So there are some various factors that you'll want to know and think about when you go to use phones at your workplace. Know how to answer a work phone. Many companies have a protocol for how that is to be answered. Company name, department, your name. Clearly identify yourself so that the other person on the line knows who they're talking to. Use more than one word to respond. No one can hear you shake your or nod your head on the phone. They can't see that. And typically you're not doing a video chat. Sounds just like on the phone. Be really clear and make sure that you're using full sentences. Those speaking skills matter here too. When calling others, identify yourself clearly and make that the first thing you do. You're going to call someone and they're going to say hello. It might be another business and they'll identify themselves. You then identify yourself right up front. Don't leave any ambiguity. If doing calls for a company, follow the protocol set by the organization. Often these might be sales calls. They could be project calls. They could be supplier calls. There's typically a protocol and a list of things that must be covered in those calls. Many times you have to record what you talked about, who you talked to, what time it was, those types of things. Make sure you know the company protocol. Listen clearly on the phone and take notes. Do not rely on memory, particularly on the phone, because your focus is totally on what you're hearing. You can't see the other person typically. So take those notes so that the information that you're getting is well recorded. Work email. All right, so a lot of people do not enjoy email because they prefer to text. But in work, emails are important. This is how you communicate. This is how you share information. This is a record of those work relationships and what people have discussed and agreed to. So you need to not use, typically no emojis, typically no abbreviations, no BRB, be right back, none of that. You want full sentences, and it should look like a letter. It's very much a formal business letter to someone else at the other end. So use the welcome, use paragraphs. You want to use full thoughts. Don't assume they remember context. So start your email with the context. We're working on XYZ project, and we have a due date of what my question for you about this is, and then you can go into it. Keep your messages clear and concise. Don't overload an email with too much information or it will not be read. People do not like to have long emails because they're busy. So you want to get to the point right away. Make sure you have the context, so keep that brief too, and then get to the meat of the question that you have or the information that you need to share. Leave space so the ideas can be seen easily. So as you're making your paragraphs, often a second return helps break up that information. Another way to leave space is to use bullet points. So as opposed to writing full sentences, you can bullet point information and then it becomes more actionable and more visible. Before you send it, read it out loud to yourself for errors in tone. Often when we write an email, we don't realize that what we just wrote did not have the tone that we wanted it to. It came across maybe a little too harsh. So read it out loud and see how someone else might be reading that. Emotional intelligence is another part of communication. This is your perception of your area and people around you. This is your intuition about a circumstance or a situation. This is your situational awareness, how you read the situation, responding versus reacting, as we discussed earlier, and being able to check your emotions. When someone is talking to you, very often they're not being personal with what they're saying to you. It's very object oriented. So depersonalize it, take yourself out of it. What are they saying about the project itself? They're not trying to attack you. This is how they want to improve the outcome of the project itself. So in summary, communication as an employability skill is how you share information with others. It includes speaking, what, when, and how, listening, presentation skills, phone skills, email, emotional intelligence. And to work on these skills, you'll want to identify these skills and work on refining these skills in yourself by spending time in self-reflection about your interactions with others, observing others and imitating those behaviors that you admire. Practice and intentionally use these behaviors and ask others to give you some feedback on your actions.